Yes, ma'am. A very good morning to one and all present here. Alone we are smart. Together we are brilliant. With this thought, I, Dr. Rupal Chaudhary, would like to extend my warm welcome to our today's distinguished guest, Dr. Balkrishan Sangvikar, a renowned academician. Keynote speakers from corporate, Mr. Sriram Rajgopalan, Mr. Mangalam Singhania, all other dignitaries, Dr. Satish Marathe, CA Ashok Bhansali, Dr. Ganesh Rao, Dr. Meghna Bilare, Dr. Vishal Vadaskar, deans, directors, HODs of various institutes, and my dear students, MBA and MCA program. In this corporate series, organized by Forum of Industry and Institutes in academic collaboration with DYPIMR Pimpri. Dr. D.Y. Patil Institute of Management and Research, DYPIMR, is one of the leading institutions of management and computer applications in Pune, Maharashtra. Institute has successfully completed 26 years of excellence. DYPIMR functions under the well-known higher education brand, Dr. D.Y. Patil Unitech Society, Pune, under the visionary and dynamic leadership of our Honorable Chairman, Dr. P.D. Patil Sir, and Secretary, Dr. Somnath Patil Sir. DYPIMR offers MBA and MCA programs which are affiliated to the Savitribai Phule Pune University. I am very glad to inform you that DYPIMR has been accredited third time by National Board of Accreditation NBA in 2020 and also endorsed by the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC, with A grade on CGPA of 3.29 in 2017. And on the same line, Institute has also awarded with Best College Award 2019 by Savitribai Phule Pune University. We are thankful to our management for their continuous support and valuable guidance for helping us in achieving such great awards and accolades. Moving forward, we feel honored to have with us CA Ashok Bhansali sir, an idol of knowledge, experience, and inspiration to all of us, a person with unique set of skills. Presently, he is virtual CFO and blockchain evangelist at Strategic Interventions Private Limited, an academic review committee member of Symbiosis International University. He is dealing with digital transformation, blockchain, artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, machine learning, deep learning, strategic financial management, CFO services, finance consultant, and trainer for leading industrial and academic organizations. He helped many organizations to grow their revenues and to control costs through strategic financial management. His core expertise are in consulting in virtual CFO services, interim CFO, corporate trainings, management development programs, internal audits, standard operating procedures, and many more. Now I would like to request CA Ashok Bhansali sir to brief the audience about the Forum of Industry and Institutes, FII. Over to you, Ashok sir.
This slide is not to be shared right now.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to everyone, and grateful thanks to D.Y. Patil Institute of Management and Research for hosting this program. And I also welcome all our distinguished guests, Mr. Sriram Rajgopalan, Mr. Mangalam Singhania, and Dr. Balkrishan Sangvikar, who are our distinguished guests of honor today. And we look forward to a very exciting session. Okay. Having said this, I'll start my, I'll try to introduce what is FII, and I'll also have a small presentation. So I'll just share my screen. Dr. Rupal, you have to, can I share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is my screen visible? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So, Forum of Industrial Institutes India, or FII in short, is a collaboration between industry and, institutes, which is always an important affair. And for decades, researchers have tried to, given considerable efforts to find the determinants of their success. Okay, a strong and proactive connect between the industry and institutes is actually inevitable and is the need of the hour. The age-old academia and industry nexus is not something new. It's perhaps one of the only paths to have a vibrant, growing economy. We have a target of $5 trillion economy. Okay. So the advent and adoption of the several emerging technologies, new age technologies, encourages greater industry and institute collaboration. And the point to note is that in this dynamic era, disruptive technologies are changing the landscape, of the economy frequently. They are affecting all sectors, conventional and non-conventional. The advent of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, blockchain, and many other technologies are transforming aggressively the way we communicate, transact, and relate to each other. So, FI is an attempt to bridge the gap between what is there and what is required for the industry needs. So the nexus between industry and academia is not something which is new. However, with changing new orders, we have to have a correct strategy so that the bond between industry and institutes is developed with a firm handshake, and so that we can fuel the sustainable growth for each other. So what exactly is in the Forum of Industry and Institutes, and is basically a attempt to bridge the gap between the two so that both can benefit. To achieve the synergy between the curriculum and the pedagogy, and how do we introduce new subjects so that they are aligned to the industry needs. The initiatives of the education industry must be aligned with what the industry needs so that there is a symbiotic ecosystem which is generated and we can both grow and prosper. Now, one may ask, why is this important for students? Well, emerging technologies or MTech are redistributing the work between man and machine. Students and professionals continuously need to reinvent themselves and relearn. So this is an era of unlearning, relearning and upskilling. And this and only this strategy will open new horizons for all. Students and managers of today have to have an open mindset like parachutes and think of being in a lifelong continuous education and make it their mantra for success. We certainly believe that FII will be a unique forum to bridge the gap and to make the ecosystem more congenial to the needs of the day. Okay, and also we should be able to look up to the challenges which the industry faces and the resources which they need, and the resources, the students, the faculty, all should understand that we need to be problem solvers.
Hello, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Sir, wish you happy marriage anniversary, sir.
Sir, can you please unmute some background knowledge? Can you please mute? Hello? Okay, now, so there is no doubt that industry and institutes share a symbiotic relationship, but the industry or academia produces graduates who are absorbed by industry. The research work in the universities is taken up by the industry and they use it for producing their goods and services. In fact, collaboration has become inevitable. Industry, on the other hand, looks for institutes for the solutions which they are grappling with. The industry, and the interesting fact is that both industry and institute can fuel each other's growth. And the passport for the students for a long-term sustainable career is when their learning and our teaching as faculty is aligned to the current needs of the economy. In fact, we should all be cognizant that the coordinated efforts by both industry and institute is the need of the hour. By adopting this strategy, students can avoid any known or unknown future shocks. Who are the persons behind this? Well, several legendary industry leaders, management gurus, innovators and technology evangelists, entrepreneurs and startups, legendary academicians, researchers, students, faculty, and institutions. But last but not the least, the managers of yesterday, today and tomorrow, and some of the students who will become managers are the important part of this economic need for change, need to adopt technology, innovation. You may ask why and what is the expectations? Well, the industry requires that we have market aligned courses, we have developed skilled manpower, solutions for their challenges and concerns, and practical and an operational approach. At the same time, the institute expectations are that they can get their funding and infrastructure, the equal partnerships between industry and institute in the growth, placement opportunity for the students they are trained, and of course, feasible goals. And when we all meet the expectations of each other, there are definitely going to be trade-offs, benefits. So one may ask, what are the benefits for industry? For industry, it is access to a pool of highly qualified resources, researchers, innovators, and students. So along with technology, thinking big, innovation is important. Thinking out of the box. The use of institutes research infrastructure, and there is a trend reports which estimate that about 10% of the innovative products and services emanate from the contribution of academic research. So that's why I said that both are dependent on each other and both can fuel each other's progress. For the institutes, the source in additional funding, in fact, it's known that the collaboration with industry has become the inevitable part of institutes funding. The access to industry best practices. Industry is always trying to improve what they do and the way they work. All of us, including students of today and tomorrow, can learn from the industry best practices and try to achieve more efficiency and productivity. And of course, there is income from licensing or patenting their products and services and the knowledge. Many of the industry players also have their in-house universities or learning portals. Of course, the way of learning has now become more digital. So I would like to just say that, the formation of FII is an attempt to cherish and foster this relationship and create a sustainable ecosystem with a win-win approach. Our endeavor is and always will be to bridge the gap and between what is taught in the classes and what is required by the industry so that we align to the contemporary needs of the society. Coming together is the beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. This is Henry Ford's words, golden words. We hope that FII can meet the expectations of both the industry as well as institutions. Well, we all have, we at FII have a forward-looking approach. We don't have a rear-view approach. We have a forward-looking approach, and we look forward to anyone who can contribute and create an ecosystem of the future. With that, I sort of end my introduction to FII. Feel free to keep in touch and to communicate. My coordinates are there on the screen, and we'll be happy to answer any of your queries online or on one-to-one. Once again, I thank everybody for the patient listening, and we look forward to our esteemed guests and speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insights on FII activities. We at DYBMR believe that by participating in these FII corporate series, we are at the right place at the right time. Together, let us accelerate the exchange of ideas and scaling up of good practices. Thank you, sir. Keeping this thought in mind, I take pride to introduce our today's distinguished guest of honor, Dr. Balkrishan Sangvikar, sir. Dr. Balkrishan Sangvikar, sir, is Senior Professor in Department of Management Sciences, Kumba, SPPU. Sir is a MBA PhD having around 25 years of experience in teaching, industry, and research with nationally and internationally reputed institutes and organizations. Presently, he is the chairman of Board of Studies in International Business Management and member Academic Council of SPPU. He is a professor on panel of Indian Studies Abroad set up by ICCR, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, New Delhi. Dr. Sangvikar is past president of AIMS, Hyderabad, which is a networking body of 800 business schools in India. Also, he has Dean of Management Faculty of Savitribai Phule Pune University. Gaining knowledge is the first step to wisdom. Sharing it is the first step to humanity. With this belief, Sir has guided 15 PhD scholars and helped them to complete their research work successfully. He has published more than 45 research papers in refereed journals, including ABDC, WOS, ABS, and Scopus Indexed. Also, he has authored and co-authored 7 books on marketing and business management. Dr. Sangvikar is fellow of Chartered Institute of Marketing, UK, and a member of American Marketing Association, USA. He was a member on Working Group of Planning Commission, Government of India, on technical education to draft 5-year plan from 2012 to 2017. He has also worked as visiting research fellow and visiting professor with various universities like New South Wales, Sydney, Australia, Politecnico di Milano, Milan, Italy, Turku School of Economics, Turku, Finland, and University of Deusto, Bilbao, Spain. I would like to request our director, Dr. Meghna ma'am, to felicitate Dr. Balkrishan Sangvikar, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would request Dr. Meghna ma'am to say a few words on this occasion. Ma'am, unmute please.
Good morning, Dr. Sangvikar sir, our mentor and guide, Mr. Mangal Singhania, Mr. Shriram Gopalan, Marathe sir, Bansali sir, participants from the institute, industry and academic participants, as well as dear students. I welcome you all to this corporate series organized in association with FII. And it's really our proud privilege to have Dr. Sangvikar sir with us today, wherein it's our initiative to strengthen industry institute interface in association with FII. So we are really thankful to FII for associating with us. And also I express my sincere gratitude to Gopalan sir and Singhania sir for being with us to address our student on the most upcoming topic, business analytics, which is the need of the time. Welcome you both, sir, to this platform. And thanks a lot for being with us and sparing your valuable time. I know you all are very busy, but really thanks for being with us and addressing our students. I'm sure that our students would be benefited with your insight from the industry perspective. Thank you all once again. Thank you, Sangvika sir, Marathe sir, and all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your words of appreciation. Now I would like to take this honor and request Dr. Balkrishan Sangvika sir to address the audience.
Thank you, madam, for your kind introduction.
Thank you, sir.
Dignitaries present for today's function: CA Ashok Bhansali ji, Chairperson of Industry Relations, FII; Dr. Satish Marathe, Chairperson of Institute Relations, FII; Dr. Meghna Bhilare, Director of the D.Y. Patil Institute of Management and Research; Dr. Ganesh Rao, Dr. Vishal Vadaskar, Mr. Mangalam Singhania, Strategic Sales Leader and Solution Consultants, Micro Focus India; Mr. Shriram Rajagopalan, Director of Professional Services, Micro Focus India, and all other participants in this today's program. Today's program, that is the Corporate Executive Series by Forum of Industry and Institutes, FFI, fondly known as FFI, in collaboration with D.Y. Patil Institute of Management and Research on future of business analytics. That's a wonderful occasion, friends. And I would like to thank organizers for inviting me for this particular program and felicitating me on this occasion. I am very much thankful to all the organizers. Today, friends, we will have a wonderful insight about the future of business analytics. And today's expert speakers will give us valuable inputs to understand this topic and its importance for our future developments. As I have very recently started studying this subject area or exploring this particular subject area, therefore it will be very difficult to talk on this topic. And if I will attempt in presence of the experts, definitely I will end up in trouble. So I won't dare that, or I will not have that adventure. So friends, on one important thing, what I observed today is that Industry Institute collaboration is helping us to develop our institutes, students, and teachers. And Forum of Industry and Institute and CA Ashok Bhansali ji, Satish Marathe ji, and Dr. Ganesh Rao, they are certainly playing a major role in understanding our institutes and industry requirements and trying to bridge the gap by organizing various programs and helping our management institutes to grow and excel in this particular their program delivery. Now, Industry Institute collaboration is so much vital for the benefit of our institute, our industry, and our society at large, that we need to have very consistent efforts in this direction. Many institutes and universities and industries, they are doing very good in this particular area at a very large scale, or to the extent they are quite successful as well. And I have one observation that many times we collaborate, we have MOUs, and after some time, both the sides are silent. Not every time this happens, but most of the times it happens. Actually, I am very optimistic about this type of collaborations because they have that desired potential and it is proven on many occasions. Today, I feel that now we need to move a further step by having a concrete partnership approach during our MOUs. Our MOUs should have a legal status to these collaborations and binding for either parties to protect the mutual interest as well as benefits. Okay, by way of we can appoint one partnership manager on both the sides, and we can explore the things simultaneously and make it to its desired successful we can see that desired successful role of these growing partnerships. Now we have seen that partnership firms, they work very well. They develop and they nurture their interests. Also, they get benefited by this partnership. Therefore, we need to nurture this partnership very seriously, and we need to have this wonderful relation. We need to pursue it for our mutual gains. These our partnership programs basically have a very high potential to support us wherever appropriate growth and scale and depth of our industry institute interface, where we need to seed our relationship, and that may become a very strategic for our future. So by way of providing institute with the underpinning resources to develop the necessary capabilities and competencies, industry need to come forward, and we need to support this emerging strategic partnership. We need to help each other by identifying our expertise as well as developing our center of excellences within our research bases. Okay, so we need to create actually challenge driven and leverage funding opportunities for our projects, maybe projects or for our joint infrastructure development as well. And this will allow our partnership to increase the leverage of each other's investment as well. We need to understand influencing the system-wide incentives to encourage our academic behaviors and conducive to engaging with our industry. Simultaneously, we have a lot many MOUs. Many times they are very, very complex. Most of the people in the organization, they don't understand that for what we are collaborating with each other and what type of partnership we are having. So we need to reduce this complexity of different kind of funding programs, and we need to start thinking strategically how our funding programs can integrate as our technologies or our model development, our patents development. So we need to explore this potential for developing joint PhD programs by way of instituting fellowship programs as well for our students or individual. Our student needs to develop their capabilities by addressing industrial research challenge or their requirement. We need to ensure our alignment and coordination of different program at different level, maybe at a spatial level, local, national or international level. And we need to be supportive of each other in this strategic partnership development. Now, our institutes, how our institutes can help the businesses by way of preparing our graduates for the workforce with desired skill set by the industry, by way of developing new technologies, models, and different patents for the industry. Also, our institutes can provide scientific consultations to identify problems and research solutions for the industry. Also, our institute can institute advanced degrees to train the employees of the different industries and organizations. By way, we can help in improving the economic development of the institution as well as the industry. And this can leverage funding through our partnership programs as well. And what our institutions can expect from the businesses or industry, we can expect that by helping our students by applying their education and getting the insights for the real problems our students are facing, businesses can impact our academic programs, our business management programs. They can help us developing our subject curriculum and innovative pedagogies to disseminate the knowledge. Also, we can expand our research opportunities for our students by, earlier I spoke about that having the fellowship programs, PhD fellowship programs for the students, because what funding we get from the government for our students, it's in a very small number. It's a very small number of students can have funded PhD programs. Industry can definitely help academic institution by instituting these different kind of fellowships or centers or having academic chairs and that can be a wonderful collaboration and partnership with the industries. By this way, we can prepare our next generation of industry leaders as well, and help our human capital in the nation to grow. So friend, by this way, we can make most of our institute and industry partnership. Now we are having forums like Institute Industry and many other associations to collaborate with, to partnership with. So friends, I know that you all are waiting for the experts to guide us on this particular subject. So I will not take much of time. And with these words, I would like to thank the organizers, CA Ashok Bansali ji, Dr. Satish Marathe, Dr. Meghna Billare, Dr. Ganesh Rao, Dr. Vishal Vadaskar, and their entire team for inviting me for this wonderful program. I wish everyone a great learning today, and best wishes to all of you, those who are present here. Thank you so much once again for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your very thought-provoking and motivational addressing. Now I would request my colleague Priya Tiwari for further proceedings of the program.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, one and all. As we all know, in the ever fast changing scenario, data has become an essential source to keep pace with it. Without data, you are just another person with an opinion who is unaware of the world outside. And as rightly said, data is the oil of 21st century and analytics is the combustion engine. So let's be ready into the voyage of business analytics with our eminent speaker, Mr. Shriram Rajgopalan. Mr. Shriram Rajgopalan, sir, currently working as a Director Professional Service at Micro Focus India. His total career span of more than 23 years includes leadership role in multinationals and experiencing covering P&L sales, program management, and solution architecture. His span of experience comprises of both international and Indian experience. His focus is on the technology, communications, and the media industry. As it is said that a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And sir is a perfect example who manages a large team of senior sales professionals, solution architects, and at the same time focuses on energizing and inspiring his teams. Compaq, HP, and Digital Global Soft Limited are some other companies which he has worked for in various capacities. We look forward to the valuable insights from his present and past experience, which will be treasured by all the managers of today's and tomorrow. Sir, it's a great pleasure to have you with us. Now I would request Dr. Meghna Billare ma'am to felicitate virtually Mr. Shriram Rajgopalan, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now I would request Rajgopalan, sir, to take us on a voyage of business analytics. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So I think if I can request my colleague Mangalam to share a few slides, I will walk through that. And we both, Mangalam and myself, will talk about a bit about Micro Focus as a company, and also about the business analytics, data science, and so on, right? We will touch upon this as we go along. So first of all, I think I'm really glad to be here today. For me, I've been through a very varied journey across multiple countries. And I will call this a satsang today, wherein I'm very happy to be in this satsang where we have people with immense wisdom, energy, positivity, youth in this session. And I'm really honored to be in this august company of very, very intellectually minded people, right? Dr. Balkrishna Sangvikar, Dr. Ashok Bansali, Dr. Marathe, Dr. Meghna Bilari ma'am, and of course my own colleague Singhania ji, right? It's a pleasure to be part of this August group, and I thank for this opportunity to be able to, I think, re-energize myself with this very, very, I think, August audience. Thanks a lot, first of all. Thank you all. So I'll just give you a brief introduction about Micro Focus, and then we will get into the business analytics part of the discussion, because that's very close to my heart, and I'll tell you why, right? So Micro Focus as a company has been in business for about 40 odd years. And recently, I think they bought out quite a few assets of Hewlett Packard Enterprise, who again been in business for more than 30 years in the software space. So I think we are a brand which is quite, I would say, not, I think, very stable, acquire a lot of companies, invest in assets, grow them, and then find ways to, I think, add value to the ecosystem in terms of industries, professions, and businesses. And I think a conservative company, we are headquartered out of UK, in near London, which is Newbury, and we remain about the top. I think this is slightly old. Probably we moved on. Probably we cracked the ceiling in terms of top 5, and one of the top 5-6 software companies in the world. And Micro Focus has a track record of delivering results every quarter. And obviously, I think like anybody else, we're going through a bit of a, I would say, a very, very new age, challenging circumstances with COVID. But I think we grabbed this opportunity, and I think we had great results for the last quarter. So just to give a brief overview, I think we're there in about 40 odd countries. As you can see, we had many, many partners in the industry. We have very, very business critical products across multiple domains, across multiple verticals, about 40,000 enterprise customers. And I think we have a large R&D center in India as well. Probably we would qualify for also, in many cases, Make in India, because our products are made in India. And we are proud to be associated with the Indian minds, which are contributing to this whole enterprise across the world. I think some examples of how some of the leading enterprises are using our security software, which is important today. I think there's a lot of concern today, especially in a digital connected world, about security. If you see BMW, General Motors, Cerner, they use aspects of our security software or monitoring software or big data, right? And I think there are really great examples of the big data use cases. And I've been personally involved with some of them as well. And analytics, and I'll share those experiences, right? I think I wouldn't want a very textbookish session because I'm a hands-on guy. So we will go through this. So these are the 4 main offerings that we have for the market today. We have something called the hybrid IT management, which can manage the cloud infrastructure. It can be a mix of, I think, public and private, or even, I would say, a complete private infrastructure. Then we have something called cyber resilience, which addresses areas of security, risk, and governance. Then, of course, we have the enterprise DevOps to bring any new application, be it mobile or otherwise, to the market. We leverage the enterprise DevOps, for example. And last but not the least, the big ticket, the big data, the predictive analytics part. That is very, very critical for any business. I think this is, I think one of the key initiatives we have. I think we are special in India in the sense that we're probably one of the few countries in the world which are having a focus to address the skill gap with the university and the industry. And I think this is one of the major focuses that I've personally taken on board since coming together into this organization with Singhania ji, and really address and help the industry in terms of leveraging the university and addressing the skill gap. I think we heard Balkrishna Sangvikar speak about it, Ashok Bansali ji speak about it, and really something that we have to do, right? I think if you want to lift India into a hub for technology, for research and development, for manufacturing, for bridging the capital industry, I think this is an area we need to address. I think the government has a desire, intention, and a drive, and we want to be part of this initiative as well, where we help the university leap forward and address the gap of industry. I think any customer in India will see, okay, there's a job market for specific software skills. And typically the leap from university to industry is not easy, right? And it takes some bit of time for anybody who joins an organization fresh out of the university to become operational and very attractive. And that is exactly what we want to address. We want to make it very attractive for the industry to get people fresh out of the university on board. They have fresh minds. They don't have any cobwebs. They don't have any, I would say, biases. So I think if we have the right orientation, we hope to bring them on board very quickly into the industry delivery. Yeah. I think, exactly. I think then we can, start really activated for the industry in terms of delivering results and excellence. I think probably you can cover these aspects, Mangalam. I will, is it okay to move on to, I think, aspects of the analytics part, or we have something else to cover?
That's fine, sure.
I think let me move to the analytics part. I think so. What's important is in a very, very fast-paced digital world today, I think it's important that we are able to take real-time decisions, right? I wouldn't say near real-time decisions. And I think we have to be able to respond to the needs of the market and react accordingly. Now, one of the memes that is being forwarded in WhatsApp is really very, it's a funny question, right? I'm not sure whether we can have a dialogue, but ideally in a real live environment, I would have preferred a dialogue in this. So can anybody guess who is really driving the digital transformation in a company? Is it the CIO? Is it the Chief Digital Officer? Is it the CFO or the CEO? I'm not sure any of you have seen this meme actually. It's a very funny meme. Who was the biggest driver for digital transformation in the last 12 to 24 months? Anybody can unmute and give an answer? I'm not sure if it's allowed, ma'am. So this is...
The CEO. CEO, sir.
That's a good answer. Anybody else can have a go at it? Okay, so let me not waste everybody's time. The biggest driver of digital transformation in the last 12 to 18 months has been COVID-19, right? It's not the CEO, it's not the CIO, it's not the CDO or CFO. I think that I don't know whether he or she, COVID-19 has driven organizations to adapt digital transformation, right? So I think that's forced them to be more digital, be more efficient, and leverage various aspects, including business analytics as never before to take a decision. I think being data-driven, for example, for a person like me, who's been in a leadership role for some time, decision-making is made easier when I have the data in front of me. If I have 10 different opportunities with 10 different customers, and if I know the buying pattern of the customer, I will be able to predict my business in terms of how we will be able to, I think, conclude a transaction or an opportunity with a particular customer. So I think this information is very important. And one aspect is having the information. The second aspect is having the data behind the information collected, analyzed, and be able to process it. Not everybody can process it at the same speed. Not everybody can process it in terms of a similar view. That's why I think we need to have analytics, which gives you insight in terms of how typically a business is optimized and typically the processes are automated. And today, as I think as Sir was speaking earlier, there's a major convergence of business analytics, AI, ML, predictive analytics, all coming together because everybody wants to do more with less, achieve more with less. Okay. If you have any questions, I think I'm open to take it or at the end. I think it's better probably if you have questions at the end, and I will go on. So one of the if you can talk about a use case now, for example, does anybody remember, actually, since all of you are MBA students, I'm not sure if you study uplift modeling as part of your course. Does anybody know what is uplift modeling? Okay, so if you go back to the election in 2012, one of the greatest examples of, I think, big data playing a first significant role in the election of Obama was in 2012 when he went for re-election. He didn't have much of a chance for getting elected. So if you roll the years back in terms of almost 9 to 10 years now, they introduced the concept of big data analytics, and this seeded the growth or the birth of a company called Blue Labs. They used the Vertica or the big data solution from Micro Focus, right? And try to target customers in terms, sorry, I would say voters in terms of, right, what or how their patterns can be influenced. So the voters became targets for an advertising or a phone call. Their messages, I think the messages were conveyed, the responses were analyzed, and I think there were two aspects to this. One, voters who had to change their minds, and two, how to get the voters out. So this election pioneered the use of data analytics using uplift modeling. I think it's worth having a look at it. I wish I could say that Micro Focus and Vertica can take all the credit, but I'm sure there are a lot of data scientists behind this, a lot of great people behind this. But I think this is one of the first elections where business analytics played a critical role. This is an application, obviously, in politics, but nevertheless, a very, very important one. And if you go to today's elections, I think this plays a very, very critical role. And if you see the various channels, right, they analyze, they overanalyze, and they reanalyze. But here is a great example of how analytics helped change an election in 2012 for Barack Obama and made sure he won the ticket the second time around in terms of being the president of the United States. Okay, so I'll go back to another example here. See, I've spent a lot of my life in the telecommunications industry, and I'm sure we all use mobile phones today. If you take, we have a mobile phone, and what we have is a tower at the end of it. So the telecommunication companies, right, have been using, I would say, big data or business analytics. Probably they've not been using these terms, but they've been using these aspects of solution for a long, long time. If you really load back 20 years or 25 years when I started working in the industry, we use this to analyze network performance data. So we would have data, for example, which would tell us, at that time, probably I was not in India, but somewhere else, which particular area is having a good network signal, a good network performance, an average or a bad network performance. So we could analyze each of these radios or BTSs as they're called in terms of what performances they are delivering. So based on that, we could take a corrective action. And if, for example, we feel there are a lot of prepaid customers in that area and they would spend more money in terms of recharging, you give them a better signal, a better network experience, we would enable the network operator, the Airtels and Vodafones of the world, to invest in the network in that area to add additional BTS, additional capacity. So people like you and me would make more calls that would result in greater revenue. Right? This is a great example of how a network-related analytics, right, helps drive a revenue for an organization, and more importantly, customer satisfaction. A customer satisfaction for, let's say, the operator is very, very important. So if I'm happy with the network performance, I would never leave a particular operator. Today, I know that we have only limited choice. We have 3+1 or 3+1.5. But this is an example, again, of how an analytics in the business, in the industry, helps the companies retain their own network performance. Another example, again, in the telco sector is you look at the behavior of particular customers and see how they are, let's say, what is their pattern? What is the pattern in making calls? What is the pattern in sending SMSs? And find out how he is going to react for a particular situation and make sure we don't lose this particular customer. So this is specifically called churn prevention. And in today's world, if you see in India, we have only 3 operators. It's very important not to lose customers. And this would be the single most important analytics use case in terms of preventing churn. So if you see, I think we have applications in many, many areas. We could apply similarly analytics in the manufacturing industry in terms of how I think typically machines are performing, how what is their efficiency in terms of output and in terms of investment, in terms of maintenance and repair. So I think quite a few use cases. I'll take you one more example of how I was personally involved in a particular use case, right? It's very interesting. So we were asked to, I can't disclose the name of the company. We were asked to work with one of the leading laptop manufacturers and PC manufacturers in the planet, right? So we had to collect data, right? And first validate the data, because obviously if the data is not accurate, whatever analysis you do is not going to be it's not going to be useful. So we first had to validate the data and then predict based on the historical information in terms of the defects, the issues the systems had in terms of during warranty, on whether it makes sense to skip the diagnostic work by the call centers for these laptop companies or this particular laptop company and take them straight for repair or replacement. So very, very interesting use case. And we do this for this company in Europe. And I can tell you, this really improved and uplifted their own savings and revenue by 25 to 30%. This was a combination of using our own big data and introducing concepts like AI and ML into this, right? We had to use some specific algorithms and help the customer here. And for me, this was very, very satisfying to make an impact in terms of their own company's performance. So I think I will stop here. I'm not sure whether Mangalam, you want to take over at this point. I think probably I've run my time of 20 minutes. I don't want to bore anybody down, but I hope I share some interesting use cases in terms of how we can apply business analytics in various industries and uplift our own the way we work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for being with us and providing such a wonderful industry insights on business analytics.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Adaptation to new technology and learning is what keeps us at par with others. And leading the education and skilling in IT sectors is one of the USP of our next versatile speaker, Mr. Mangalam Singhania, sir. Mr. Mangalam Singhania, sir, presently working as a country manager at Micro Focus. Sir's strength lies in championing initiatives to fuel business, revenues, profit, and margin growth with strategic change. He is an output-driven leader who builds consensus, transcends business needs, and creates high ROI relationships with a dynamic network channel and partner base. He has created significant value across education services and software sales. Sir has experience across a wide range of functionalities spanning tech, consultancy, product and relationship management, sales, and P&L roles. Sir is truly a value creator. He is having more than 15 years of vast experience, which include more than 12 years combined experience and 4 years in sales and business leadership to create high-performance team and long-term growth strategies that propel a company forward. The Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry has appointed him as a chief mentor to lead the education and skilling in ITES sector. His specialty is in effecting change and positioning organization to improve profitability. His motto in life is, each new initiative is an opportunity that, if managed well, can lead to superior results. Bringing as an open mind, he evaluates strengths and vulnerabilities and work from the ground up to understand all the aspects of business, finances, technology, and end-to-end sales relationships from P&L perspective. From being a hard-headed negotiator who drives aggressive saving to a person who drives cohesion by leading from the front, he fosters collaboration and drive tremendous change with reserve, sharp focus, and proven results. We welcome you, sir. I would now request Dr. Meghna Billari ma'am to felicitate virtually Mr. Mangalam, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Now I would request Singhania, sir, to throw more light on business analytics. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I think so. It's just exactly 12 noon. So good noon to everyone. First of all, before I begin, I would like to thank Shriram sir for his valuable insights, Dr. Balakrishnan sir for absolutely hitting the nail at the right spot in terms of the engagement, the way the university collaboration should happen. Yeah, I think it was a very important aspect of the industry academia relationship and how we should look at these collaborations going forward in the future. So thank you, Sriram sir, and thank you, Balakrishnan sir, for all the valuable insights. Of course, I do, and I would like to also thank Dr. DY Patil management team and FII for organizing this event. A big round of applause and thanks to all the 206 plus participants, and I think so many more on the live YouTube streaming services who are currently logged in and looking forward to hear from us. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much. I think so, before the COVID times, we used to have these events face to face. It was more of a human interaction, right? So we could see each other, we could interact more. Of course, with COVID coming in, these are all happening more online. I hope that all of us get vaccinated soon. The COVID pandemic comes under control, and we can resume these events more again face to face, which is much more interacting, and not rather than just being a one-sided communication. So today's topic, of course, business analytics. Of course, 15 minutes, I believe, is tough to cover what all can be done or what's the insight on the business analytics. However, I would like to or try to cover some of the aspects on the business analytics, especially from the student student's perspective, because I'm sure a lot of the students here would like to understand how business analytics or how learning MBA with business analytics specialization can impact themselves, their career, not only from a short-term perspective, but from overall long-term future and roadmap perspective, right? So of course, we all understand, right, that business analytics is the process of basically you're collecting, combining, sorting, dissecting all the data to gain business insights. It absolutely provides, it helps in determining all the data, what we get, right, which is in petabytes of data that can be, and analyzing them and how that data can be leveraged to solve problems and increase the productivity and revenue for a company. The increasing demand for MBA with the analytical skills has made the business analytics a relatively new and a popular specialization in the management domain. In MBA, for the business analytics, the professionals, the students can be trained on how to drive insights, to drive company profit and revenue. Of course, and thanks to the social media, the web media, the internet storm, and the growing proliferation of the IoT devices, which makes this field of specialization much more which is witnessing much more tremendous growth with long-term potential, right? Sriram sir has already covered a lot of interesting use cases and scenarios which we are which we encountered on a daily basis, right? So I would like to perhaps start with some of the domains, particularly some of the verticals where business analytics is applied. Of course, if we really talk about the domains, I don't even think I can recollect or remember any single domain or industry where we can say that business analytics is not required, right? Right from agriculture to stock broking to your manufacturing to your healthcare, medical, social media, everywhere, we need business analytics. Since India, I would like to perhaps pick up the agriculture part first, maybe spend 2 minutes on discussing that, because a large part of the Indian economy depends on the agriculture, right? This sector has a major contribution to the economic growth of our country. Of course, mind that there is a big difference between the economic growth and the economic development, because economic development is a much more larger initiative where a larger perspective which deals with the social and the monetary development rather than only the monetary part of it, the financials part of it. So we know that Indian agriculture experiences severe and drastic climatic conditions like depletion of the ground level, water in the rural areas. There's climatic change. There is the deforestation which is happening from the farmlands to reclaim those rural areas to urban areas in the search of employment. So that's where I believe the agriculture needs a lot of focus and attention for the growth. Business analysts can basically help here in understanding the availability of the crops, the crop production, the quality of the quantity of the seeds, what is needed, how's the monsoon going to favor, how's the climate change affecting the crop production, everything. And all this analytics can be perhaps brought together to ensure that there's a better yield of the crop, right? Similarly, for example, nowadays, the agriculture industry, and I was talking to one of these, the known skill development corporation in India, and they were saying that they were explaining how basically they have employed predictions on soil parameters using business analytics and analyzing the previous data of the crop yield to ensure that the crop yield becomes much better in the future. We talk about stock marketing. I'm sure the Nifty is and the Sensex is soaring day on day. Of course, a lot of people amongst us might be interested in the equity and stock marketing. That's where, perhaps again, a very, very crucial area where, the business analytics comes into picture. The business analytics basically can help in the performance of the organization in terms of the business processes and profit by analyzing what would be the variance in the market, what would be the change, or what would be the change in the price or fluctuation in trends. The business analyst, there is a continuous change in the price of the stocks and the company valuation, right? These continuous trends, what is there, can be captured by the business analysts. There are hundreds of algorithms which can be brought into picture, and based on those algorithms and based on those analytics, the business analyst can basically predict the uptrend or the downtrend for the stocks. Similarly, we talk about manufacturing industry. From the manufacturing industry, the business analyst can actually say what are the highest number of customers, or what's the most popular product or service that is needed, right? That's something which comes into the picture. From the medical industry, we talk about, medical industry, again, it's very critical in terms of, you talk about predicting the quantity of the medicines in the store, the shipment of the medicines to the local market, predictions about diseases, how two different medicines can react onto the same diseases, to right from the patient management and the availability of the doctors, everything. So that's where even the production of the machine, the medicines can be optimized in terms of the cost, the geography, the requirement, the disease, everything. So that's where all the business analytics comes into picture. Similarly, the CRM, I think so. Shriram sir already gave a fantastic example of churn protection, churn management. That's where, again, the CRM also comes into picture. The business analysts can actually take required steps to ensure they have a strong and healthy customer relationship with the organization. And that's very important because we need to understand that, and each company, what they ensure is that the cost for acquisition of a new customer is much more higher than retaining their existing customers, right? So from churn prevention perspective, a business analytics comes into picture. I'm sure all of us are uses the Amazons and the Flipkarts of the world. We know that once we log in, we get our preferences or the recommended items which we need to shop. That's something which comes from the e-commerce personalization, right? So that's where, again, business analytics comes into picture. One of the, again, a very, very notable example could be your insurance fraud protection. Insurance frauds causes up to almost $68 billion of losses in a year to the companies, right? So that's where, again, the business analysts comes into picture to protect the billions of dollars and the claims and these billing records which comes here to ensure they try to identify and mitigate any of the fraudulent activities. So these were some of the, of course, not even it's minuscule amount, percentage of some of the notable use cases which we see in the business analysts, or how business analysts can come into the picture in the industry. The reason why I'm focusing on them is that perhaps it motivates the students who are sitting together today here and who would like to know that how or where or what their career would shape in case they go for the business analytics with specialization with MBA and specialization in business analytics. So I would take a pause here. In case you have any questions or queries, please do let me know, or I would be happy to continue. Any queries from the management team, the deans, the students, anyone? Or okay, we can also leave the questions to the end. Okay, coming back onto this, right? So let's say from the job market perspective, if I talk about, right? So back in 2016, McKinsey made it very clear. I'm not sure how many of us read this, but McKinsey had made it very clear that the business analytics is a must for the MBA students, because that's when the company started to look out for MBA students who understands the science behind decision making. Decision making is one part, but understanding the science makes you a master there, right? That's where the analytics comes into picture. In a market where big data is everything, individuals who lack that data analytics skills would be a clear disadvantage going along. And MBA and business analytics would train you not only on the management skills, but also on the technical skills, and a fine balance of both of them is very, very critical for the success. At some of the top MBA colleges where you learn business analytics, students would learn perhaps the data mining, decision models, visualization, data acquisition, preparing, and customer analytics. Even as per one of the EY reports, which was there in 2019, there was almost a 50% increase in how organizations intend to use analytics to drive broad level decision making. Similarly, there was a report from Accenture some time back, which pointed out the importance of analytics in the consumer packaged goods, and how companies can develop enterprise-wide strategies to harness the power of analytics. Okay, so the question which comes here is why MBA in business analytics, right? So an MBA tends to remain as a lucrative career even during the COVID pandemic. Although there were some critics and there were some apprehensions, but if you go to the known pay side, the job sites, the job referral site, the hiring websites, the hiring projections, what you would see, and the availability of the jobs, what you would see there, clearly kills all the apprehensions and the negative perceptions about the importance of MBA. And when you try to combine MBA with business analytics, that's a lethal combination, because right from looking at marketing managers to seeking data about the customers to financial analysts, calculating the investment decisions, you talk about the people who want to be into social media analytics, who want to be in the web analytics or in the HR domain, right? In all of these domains, business analytics plays a very, very critical role, and it touches upon the lives of all the people who are working there in these particular domains. Even if you look at the hiring projections in one of the corporate surveys, which was conducted in 2019, 40% of the responding companies actually mentioned that they plan to hire graduates who have data analytics and intelligent job functions. The hiring projections if you look at the hiring projections for the MBA business analytics, it is the highest in the Asia Pacific region with almost 50%, followed by, I believe, United States with almost 40%. Then it comes to Europe, which is the 36%. Of course, some of these statistics are well available from the internet, and thanks to the internet, I could get these statistics from there. The reason, again, I'm presenting it is to emphasize the importance of analytics, and especially with the job projections being the highest in the Asia Pacific region, India plays a very, very critical role here. Saying that's why an MBA program that specializes in business analytics or big data is valuable, because it just does not let students learn how to sort, collect, or understand the implications of the data, but also to understand how that data can be used to meet the strategic goals of an organization, how that analytic functions can help to drive the profitability, the revenue, and the growth of an organization. And ultimately, at the end of the day, each and every organization is looking for profitability and growth. So that's where it becomes very critical. Looking at the career options also, there are various roles which you can look at once you have a business analytics. Once you have learned business analytics, you talk about management consultant, you talk about data analyst, you talk about BI analyst, you talk about the program and marketing manager, big data analytics, operation research. So there are hundreds of roles perhaps which I would skip for this presentation now, but there are various roles where, and again, in different domains and industries, where the students can opt for their career going forward once they finish the specialization, their MBA in specialization business analytics, right? And also, if you look at one of the LinkedIn reports in 2019, it clearly called out the importance of analytical reasoning, business analytics, and data science being one of the few critical skills that will be required by all the companies going forward. Having said this, to conclude on the importance of the business analytics from the MBA perspective, MBA and business analytics is an upcoming area, and that is absolutely gaining traction in all the sectors of the industry. The specialization shows a positive and a promising outlook, and those who have been skeptical about choosing the career path may perhaps choose to safely and wisely take up this journey, they take up this MBA journey in business analytics. So that's what I have for today. And if there are any questions to any of us, we are open to answer them. Yeah, thank you.
Is anyone having any questions? You can write it in chat box. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge, experience, and enlightening us as an importance of business analytics in industry. Today, we have with us a well-acquainted personality, Dr. Satish Marathe. Dr. Satish Marathe, sir, has over 36 years of experience in the field of education and presently associated with Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Management and Entrepreneurship Development as visiting faculty. Sir obtained his doctoral degree in management from Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapeeth, Pune, and has done MA Economics from Pune University and BSc Statistics from Shivaji University. Learning new things represent the growth mindset. Sir believes in continuous learning and one shouldn't stop learning at all. He worked as Associate Professor at Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapeeth, Pune, and as a registrar and visiting faculty in several institutes in Pune and Mumbai. He also has a keen interest in teaching with focus on micro and macroeconomics. Sir has also worked as a corporate trainer and has been a part of humanist movement. Sir has published many research papers in reputed journals and has also presented his opinions on live television shows like Modern Management Methods and Union Budget 2030. We welcome you, sir, in this panel discussion. With these words, I would like to invite CA Ashok Bhansali, sir, for concluding remarks and vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Well, it was a very delightful and insightful session. I thank Mr. Shriram Rajagopalan, Mr. Mangalam Singhania for bringing out the nuances of how data can be converted into information and therefore and further into decision making. And we also thank Dr. Balkrishnan Sangvikar for raising some of the pertinent practical issues between industry and academia. And well, all I can say is that this is a journey and not a destination. We thank all the distinguished guests and most importantly, all the participants who have taken out time, including some of my close associates and alumni members who have taken out time to listen to this. As I said, it's a journey. So we look forward to all your questions and any other insights and ways to improve the program. And my heartfelt gratitude to our academic partner, the D.Y. Patil Institute of Management and Research, who are always open to new interventions. So with that said, I would bring this session to an end. The students who have got questions about the Business Analytics program and the Microsoft Software University can post them, and we'll try to get the answers for them. And probably we'll also look forward to both the distinguished speakers from Micro Focus to address the students again and bring in more insights, because getting the insights and using it for our curriculum is going to be a continuous journey. It's not a destination. And we want to look forward with a forward-looking view and not the rear view. Thank you one and all for this event.
Sorry, sir. Sorry to interrupt you, Bhansali, sir. Only one question is there in chat box. If you permit us, can we take this question from the speakers?
You can.
Of course, you go ahead.
Please.
That what is the success rate of predictive business analytics in India and also at the global level? And what is the share of business analytics in the private sector and PSUs in India? This is the only one question, sir. If you permit, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I would request our speakers, please.
Yeah, so I think let me have a go for the Sriram here.
Yes, sir.
So I think when I see these questions, right, I think it's mandatory. Let's take, for example, let me go back to the telco example. I'm not sure how many of you use an Airtel network. Airtel was able to publish the performance or availability of all their sites live. A customer could log into an Airtel site and check whether how the network was performing. That is nothing but the data related to the network and analytics of the network coming up at a very, very abstract level of how a site is performing. This is based on various parameters, and the data is getting assimilated through multiple layers and being shown to a consumer like you and me. So that's the telecom space, right? And as Mangalam said, the applications have been increasing across multiple verticals. It's mandatory. Every IT organization or a business organization today is desperately looking to have a data scientist, many of them. So it's not a choice. It's like be there or be dead. If you don't have this as part of your business, right, most likely, I think you'll end up becoming extinct. So I think that this is not a decision to be made. This is a dummy which has to be done. I hope that answers the question.
So it's absolutely, hits on the nail, sir. You hit the point on the nail. You nail the point, and it's true. It is inevitable. As you said, it is inevitable.
Thank you, sir.
With that, I think I will we thank any other questions?
Yes, there is one more. The question goes like, how business analytics works and what are the job opportunities in it?
Right. So perhaps I can try to give an attempt on that. So as we mentioned, right, so I think so in the beginning of the session, when we spoke about business analytics, right? So business analytics, we all have data. We have trillions and petabytes of data, which is getting collected everywhere, right? So business analytics is nothing, but it's actually about the process of collecting the data. So there are various processes to it, the preparation of the data, collecting the data, combining that data from multiple sources into one single place, then processing that data using statistical models, methodologies, a various number of algorithms to transform that data into business insights. That's how basically business analytics work. It's all about, collating everything together and building data lakes, and then, applying algorithms and statistical techniques on that to get that business analytics. Looking into the job industry perspective, again, as I mentioned that, some of the popular reports did mention that, from the job projection perspective, Asia Pacific region stands foremost, right? And you talk about any industry, we spoke about agriculture industry, we talk about manufacturing, retail, your telecom, any industry you talk about, analytics is mandatory at this point of time to keep up to the pace, to keep up to the competition, and to make company more profitable. You have to have business analytics there, right? So that's where you talk about any sector, any domain, or any industry, you will have sufficient and good amount of business analytics jobs available there. Of course, when you look at the number of statistics, you can always also go into various number of job hiring websites, and you can do analysis yourself by seeing and understanding that how many jobs are open. Got disconnected. Hello? Okay, sorry. Yeah, so what kind of jobs are there? What kind of job openings are there? But yes, the immense demand is huge. Yeah, that's all. Does that answer the query?
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more is over there. What does an organization expects from a fresher in MBA Business Analytics? I would like to request our speakers.
Okay. So while so each and every organization has their own onboarding plan, and Dr. Ashok sir, Dr. Shri sir, please, Shriram sir, please feel free to add. And each of the organizations have their own onboarding process, right? So once you, as a fresher, once you learn business analytics, and again, it depends on the amount of real-time examples you are studying in your MBA, what kind of internship you're doing during your business analytics course. It helps you gain that practical knowledge during an internship. And once you join a company, companies will have their own onboarding process, their own application, their own domain and vertical. So with respect to it, subjected to or in context to the organization needs, the fresher would be trained on what is expected from them as part of the business analytics or that relevant function where the fresher would be joining the organization. What the MBA would be giving you is the core fundamentals of the subject, how to apply gain that knowledge, and then perhaps apply them during your internships and projects. And then, of course, the rubber hits the road once you actually join a company. So it's all individual and specific to the organization, domain, and vertical. What would we need?
Mr. Singhania, just to add to what you said, I think it is rightly said that it's different strokes for different folks. So first of all, depending on the abilities and the intellectual capacities of the students, and also every company has got a separate business segment and risk and profit drivers. So it has to be structured to the company. Would that be a right way of putting it?
So I think I see another question actually.
Okay.
I think this, in my view, I want to answer this right. There's no, as far as I can understand, it is not a conflict. The analytics, the output or the outcome of the analytics is to enhance business performance. And the business development folks on the ground, be it sales or sales support, right, are working towards improving the performance of the company or stabilizing the performance of the company, whichever the case may be. And the analytical output, right, is to improve the performance of the business. If I am, say, for example, campaigning for, let's say, a candidate A, right? Now, do I make 10 calls and find out and just don't know what the candidate will do, the voter will do? So if we go back to the example, so what the campaign team of Obama did was, I think you probably need to read a little bit of uplift modeling. I think that'll help you understand that subject better, for example. I'm not a great expert of that, but having come across this scenario, what happened was they decided to go after people who had, for example, donated money to the Republican Party, donated money to the Democratic Party. They were 50-50. So they decided to go after these people as a campaign on the basis of analytical data. This data was all over the place. They assimilated this data. So the equivalent of the business development people on the ground, in the case of the election, is people who campaign for a candidate. So the campaigners relate messages, be it through SMS, phone, email, or whatever, to the specific target. And if you ask me, I think that one of the critical factors between defeat and victory. And obviously, we all know that Obama won the re-election, the landmark re-election.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request Dr. Vishal, sir, kindly share a few words with us.
Good afternoon, everybody, all the dignitaries, speakers, guests, members of FII, faculty members, and the students available for this seminar. CA Ashok Bhansali sir had very generously expressed vote of thanks for all the guests and speakers of the seminar. I'm here only to do to complete the task by filling up a little bit of the gap. On behalf of DYP IMR, I take opportunity to express our sincere thanks to FII first. CA Ashok Bhansali ji, Dr. Satish Marathe sir, we have seen them how relentlessly they have been working since last more than a month now, since we have started this series. And we have seen with what sincerity and what dedication they have been working for organizing series of such talks. They have given us opportunity for a couple of times, this being the second time. We're extremely thankful to them for being associated with FII for organizing such a meaningful series of talks. Along with that, a little bit of my personal experience that recently I was unwell, and we started preparing for this program immediately after I resumed back office. Ever since then, whenever we talked, I talked with Ashok Bhansali sir, Satish Marathe sir, Dr. Ganesh Rao regarding arrangement of this program. The first thing they have always checked with me is whether my health is okay. And it means a lot. It means a lot to me. I was able to experience that warmth very much, and I'm sure that whosoever gets in touch with them will experience the same kind of warmth. I am personally very thankful to all of them. I would also like to express sincere thanks to Dr. Ganesh Rao for not ever coming in the front, but supporting a lot from behind the scene. Actually, he has been a guiding light for all of us. In addition to this, I have seen Dr. Rupal Chaudhary and Professor Priya Tiwari working relentlessly for organizing this seminar, and also doing a wonderful job in anchoring. So I'm also thankful to them. Sincere thanks to Director of the Institute, Dr. Meghna Bhilare, for being very cooperative and making all the resources available time to time without any second thought or second guess about anything. We have experienced a wonderful seminar today, and we are hopeful that we are going to experience the similar kind of seminars in the future also. Special thanks to a couple of more people. Our placement officer, Professor Sushil Kumar Kulkarni, along with one of our very special student, Aditya Over, who have been working in a team for creating for all the creatives of the seminar. And special thanks for technical support to Professor Ravi Bhatle, who has been, who have never come in the forefront but have always provided excellent technical support. So thanks to everybody for supporting this, organizing this seminar directly or indirectly. And once again, on behalf of DY Patil, entire DY Patil group also, Special thanks to all the guests and speakers available in the seminar today also. Hope to have a very long-term relationship with everybody for future also, and counting on even more successful seminars in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. The end of one chapter is just the beginning of another. And the best part is always here to come. So on this note, I thanks everyone and hope to meet soon on the next journey of enrichment. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sriram sir. Thank you, Mangalam.
I request all to be, I think, extremely safe. I think the mental and physical well-being of our society is very important. That'll, I think, ensure that our country also remains healthy physically and mentally. I think we have to take care in COVID times that we are really, really careful, especially with so many waves coming now in multiple cities. I request all to be cautious, wear masks and be protective. On that note, I wish you all a very good day. I'm grateful for this satsang with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.